Hey guys, first regardsman here, and so I want to talk about Space Marine 2 Patch 13, the upcoming release date, and some major news regarding the public test server for this patch. Now, Focus did come out recently and say there will be no public test server for Patch 13. The last time we had no public test server for a patch was during the anniversary patch for Patch 10 in September of last year, which is a pretty shocking thing because usually they will only do this for like major updates, and Patch 13 has been shaping up to be significantly larger than we originally expected. We are getting a new weapon, 3 new heroics, a new operation, a siege mode rework, and a brand new boss as well, which is pretty substantial to be honest. Now, we are also getting Warhammer Skulls, the biggest 40k and just general Warhammer gaming event this year, and that will probably have even more reveals for this patch and other parts of year 2. I think that a huge reason why Saber is eliminating the PTS for this patch is because they want to time it along Warhammer Skulls. Like, I think something big is coming for not just Space Marine 2, but also for things like Darktide, for things like Dawn of War 4, more Total War Warhammer 40k reveals, and as far as Space Marine 2 is concerned, this could be a significantly bigger patch than we originally expected. Now, the updated roadmap that we're getting this year is supposed to be a substantial difference from what we actually had originally. Techmarine came out later than Saber initially planned, and because of that, a lot of players have been waiting for this updated roadmap, and Focus has come out multiple times and said that, like, the changes will be significant, because not only are we getting all the stuff I previously mentioned, but there will also be a progression update this patch and a practice arena. I've talked previously about the possibility of a year 3, but as far as the current state of Space Marine 2 for just year 2 is concerned, I think the game is in a pretty phenomenal spot, and I think they're probably about to push something pretty massive here, because last year during Warhammer Skulls, we had a reveal of Arbites for Darktide, we had a massive siege mode reveal on top of that, and they're doing that this year once again, and no PTS is either number one, a sign that they're trying to just make sure they're on schedule, or number two, that they are plotting something massive for the future release of the game. But what does this actually mean for the release date of Patch 13? Well, previously Focus said that they wanted to have a target date of like April or May for this patch. Almost all patches come in like a 2 to 3 month gap in this game, but we are almost at the end of April here, so I would really not expect to see this patch anytime before mid-May, especially now that we have no public test server. Any public test server almost always releases like a month prior to the patch, and this would usually be the time you would receive one, but this time around, it does seem they are trying to basically schedule this around Warhammer Skulls, which does make sense because Warhammer Skulls will probably bring a ton of players to the game, so launching your big patch around that time period, especially after a patch that is as successful as the Techmarine was, makes a ton of sense. Now, just because we're not getting a public test server or a patch 13 in April, it doesn't mean you're actually getting nothing this month, because next week there will be a brand new community event for Space Marine 2 that will be bringing back one of the most sought after cosmetics in this game's history with the Phobos Infiltrator helmet for the Vanguard and Sniper class. Now, this came out around 6 months ago, and a ton of players actually missed this because it was a pros account linked event that made it very difficult for certain players to actually obtain. Since that time period, they have actually made it so all these community events pretty much never require you to have a pros account anymore, so hopefully more players get it this time. But to be honest, Saber did say previously they were going to be adding heroic items like this, or like the limited time cosmetics, to the heroic store eventually, but so far they have really not done that for any of them except like the Sergeant Matoris Twitch drop stuff, and instead they have used these items to be recycled into community events and stuff like that, which is a pretty lame thing because it's basically just recycling content at that point when it comes to this kind of stuff. And we also saw the same behavior with the Twitch drops for Techmarine, where all the Twitch drops were stuff we already saw previously. So hopefully in the future of year 2, after all of this, they will actually give us new items, because year 1 had way more unique cosmetics for community events and things like this, so hopefully we'll see that again in year 2 or year 3. But on the note of cosmetics, there is a brand new customization feature coming to patch 13 as well, on top of a ton of new successor chapters and stuff like that. I think a lot of players are going to be pretty happy with all the new customization options. It also seemed like we were also going to be getting things like heroic items for cosmetics in the heroic store again. Patch 11 was the last time we saw any major releases for the heroic store in terms of cosmetic items, and this on top of a new customization feature I think would honestly be a huge boon for the player base. And as far as year 3 is concerned, guys, this is my conspiracy here, but I really do think that Saber is pushing for this game to have a huge reveal this summer. I mean, last summer we had the reveal of Siege Mode, or we had like the release of a public test server for Siege Mode. I know a lot of people are disappointed that there will be no public test server for this one, but in my opinion, no PTS for a patch like this is actually good for the player base. I have never been a big fan of early access for like one platform, because the public test server for Space Marine 2 is exclusively available on the PC version of the game. And what this kind of causes is a ton of players will play the patch on PC. The official patch will be shown to everybody basically, because most of the changes are like purely balance or bug fixes. And because of that, some of the novelty of the patch is lost before the patch even comes out. We kind of saw this with Tech Marine, where even though Tech Marine is a class you have to level up, most people kind of already knew the good builds before the class even came out. Most of the balance changes were not significant. Everybody already knew what the heroic weapons did. And this is part of the reason I think that patch 10 was the best patch for this game, is because it had no public test server. The entire player base was allowed to engage with the game at the same time, and we were basically all figuring out the game together. And that's just way better for a games community, in my opinion, than having like one segment of it have a gigantic early access section and the other one's just stuck there watching and waiting for like an extra month. That leads to a lot of feels bads, and hopefully this will help circumvent that, so that console and PC players can actually engage with the content at the same time, because usually that's where a lot of the fun comes from for a PvE horde shooter community, is trying out all the new items and class builds together, rather than like one segment of the community having full access to it a month prior, while everybody else is left waiting around. Now, this patch will also include a Siege Mode rework, and this is kind of where I put my tinfoil hat on, because I have a sneaking suspicion that the updated roadmap will include the new Siege Mode map that was originally supposed to come out in patch 15, because I don't know how well a Siege Mode rework is going to do if we're stuck on the exact same map again. I mean, there is a ton of new stuff coming to the requisition store and stuff like that, and we're also getting new weapon skins for Siege Mode, but just having new requisition items I don't think it's going to hit quite as well as it should, even if we are getting accolades for the mode now as well. But a new map, I think that would draw players back in, and having to wait like multiple months in advance to actually play a new map for the mode we've had one map for nearly a year now, I think that'd be a pretty big detriment or hurt the actual rework. But you guys can let me know what you think about that one in the comments below. And as far as the progression rework is concerned for this patch, we know basically nothing about what this will actually contain, but the bare minimum I want this to address is the prestige grind in the game. I think re-leveling your classes in Space Marine 2 is currently the least fun portion of the game. Weapon grinding isn't too bad, but having to lose your builds 4 times over for prestige perks just sucks. I think a ton of players are put off of prestiging entirely because of that, and for a lot of builds, prestige ranks and prestige perks, they are pretty much mandatory to actually make some classes function at peak capacity for things like hard stratagems and the absolute difficulty, and especially the new Siege Mode rework. So hopefully they address that in this patch as well, because that is probably what's keeping a lot of players away from even ranking up their classes or putting them off playing the game entirely. And if they give this a proper level grind that feels rewarding and less so like a slog, I think that'll help the game out tremendously. But that is pretty much everything I want to talk about in this one, guys. I would not expect patch 13 to come out before mid to late May at the earliest. Early May is just way too early in my opinion, and I think they want to time this around the Warhammer Skulls event far more than that. And also, let me know how you feel about the public test server not being available for this patch. I imagine a lot of console players are going to be happy they'll be able to play the content at the same time as the PC player base. And as usual, I will be covering this all on this channel, so if you want to watch content like that, subscribe for more. And if you want to watch me live to ask me questions about the game or just come hang out, you can find me here on YouTube or on Twitch with a link in the video description alongside a link to my community Discord. And thank you for watching, take it easy, bye.